All right, so this is going to be a lesson on reading efficiently. Um, the task for this lesson is for students to be able to describe the typical life of a U.S. infantry soldier during the Vietnam War. And this lesson is going to be from my English 11 class. Uh, it's a task that's preparation for reading the novel The Things They Carried. It's a novel about the Vietnam War by Tim O'Brien. So to prepare for reading that novel, we would want students to have some background on kind of what life was like for uh, infantry soldiers during the Vietnam War. And what students are going to be doing is they're going to be engaging in searching for information on what life was like for infantry soldiers, and then as they search for information, they'll have to identify the most relevant sources, and then they'll have to pick information from the most relevant and reliable sources that is going to help them accomplish that task, and then organizing that information into what will eventually become an oral presentation that they will give to their classmates that will help their classmates understand what life was like for infantry soldiers in the Vietnam War. So before beginning or engaging in their search for information, students would get some background information to understand, okay, what an infantry soldier is, so that we would just go over kind of the job of an infantry soldier is a combat force in the United States Army, and so these are the soldiers that do the bulk of the actual fighting in the Vietnam War, and that these are the soldiers that are going to be the focus of the novel that we're going to be reading. So students would begin with a little bit of that background knowledge. And then what we would have students do is, well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges they might have. Part of this screencast that I'm going to be modeling is to show students how to search for and then identify sites that are going to be relevant to what their search task is, and then I think students in particular are really going to struggle with kind of identifying what sites are going to be relevant. And then once they identify sites that are relevant, I know with this task it's going to be difficult to identify what information is actually important for their to fulfill the search task. And then once they've identified that, then they need to kind of pull all the information that they've learned together into something cohesive that they can present and communicate to others. So what I would ask students to do is I would, first of all, I would model for them a search, and then I would kind of talk them through interpreting these search results, and then looking through some of the sources and looking at what might be the important information in those sources. So here we have just a sample Google search window. So the Army soldier experience in Vietnam, and so if we were to do this search, uh, as we can see here, we have a variety of search results. And as I'm looking through these, what I'm noticing as a reader is I'm seeing some of these search terms that um, I have put in are bolded as part of the search results. And I'm just browsing through these results. I'm not clicking on anything quite yet because I want to see kind of what's coming up on this page. And something I notice as I look through these is I see some of these sources may not be uh, the greatest, because if I notice this source right here, this looks, if I'm looking at like the URL here, I notice this is just a WordPress site, so it's probably just somebody's personal blog. Additionally, they're misspelling the word Vietnam. So while there might be some stories about soldiers' experiences, I'm not so sure that I would consider this site to be all that trustworthy. So I may not want to choose that site as a site that would give me reliable information on my topic on this search task. But if I look farther down, what I'm noticing here, if I look at like this website right here, I notice this is the Albany Herald. That sounds like a newspaper to me. So if I click on that, that's going to take me to this site right here. And this is like an online version of a newspaper for Albany, New York. And if I read through this, it looks like there are some stories uh, that they have collected from people who lived in Albany, who were soldiers in the Vietnam War. And as I look on through this, as a reader, what I would have to do is I would have to read through these individual accounts, and I would have to pull out of here what were kind of the most important or most interesting or most relevant parts of kind of daily life for soldiers in the Vietnam War. And so as I go on and on and on, there are um, multiple veteran stories on here, and it looks like it says tomorrow soldier stories too. So there will be more of these. So as a critical reader, I think what I would be searching for is I'd be looking for things that might be representative of other soldiers' experiences in the Vietnam War. And what I would want to do as a student, the next part of our assignment is if I find something, or if I can come up with an idea that I think is a good description of the soldiers daily life, what I would do is I'd come over here to this Google Doc, and this is a chart that the students would be working on filling out, and they'd be working through this search query in groups, and working on this chart in groups, and so they have this Google Doc they could be working on together simultaneously. But the directions for this is, as you research what daily life is like for infantry soldiers during the Vietnam War, you want to use this template to track your progress and list the sources you consulted and write down the most important and relevant information that you found from each source. So there's another source that we would probably want to look at here, just to go back to our Google search results. There's a history.com source, and this is a video, so it's not text. So students would have to go through and watch this video where this is basically an interview with Colin Powell about his experience in the Vietnam War, and he reflects on soldiers' experiences in the Vietnam War. And if I wasn't sure who Colin Powell was, I could do a quick Google search and understand, oh, okay, he was a retired general in the United States Army. He was the 65th Secretary of State. So if I watch this video, and here's just an example, the source I have listed on here is this video from history.com. And I have an interview with a relatively distinguished person about the soldiers' experience, and so some things I might have learned from that were Colin Powell mentions the draftees were usually the ones who saw the fighting. He goes on to describe the difference between kind of the professional soldiers who signed up and the draftees who were drafted, and then he also goes on to describe how part of the experience of soldiers was that once they returned home from the war in Vietnam, they were not welcomed back very favorably. So this would be our search task, is to go through and looking at these sources to find information that would be relevant to understanding an infantry soldier's daily life in Vietnam. After we've collected all of this information and we've kind of completed this chart here, what we would do is then we would have to take this information and put it into a presentation that we would be able to share with our classmates, and that would be kind of our reflection and synthesis portion of the lesson, where we would be able to kind of tie up all of what was the most important parts of our research in understanding the infantry soldier's experience. And so that is pretty much it for our screencast that would walk us through how to search for and locate information that would be relevant to understanding the infantry experience in the Vietnam War.